All right, so good evening. Good evening and welcome back to JPCE Watchdog News. This is me, Jared Campbell. So we're going to continue to talk about crisis in the Donbas region, Ukraine. We're also going to talk about the collapse of Ukrainian defenses. We're going to talk a little bit about NATO, what's going on with all of that. Here's the introduction. As we delve into the unfolding crisis in Donbas, where the Ukrainian defense lines have crumbled under intense Russian advances, the urgency of the situation becomes palpable. The rapid fall of key cities, the growing outcry against President Zelensky underscore the critical developments threatening Ukraine's position in this brutal conflict. Tonight's episode is brought to us by our Father in Heaven. So if you're going to ask me, is World War III around the corner? Keep listening to my reports. All right, so as we share the screen over, we're going to jump right into it. Thank you all again for following. Get up here and get our articles on the screen, get right to the report. Should be a very quick report this evening. All right, so here we go. So on the screen, it says crash, complete collapse of the Ukrainian front. In Donbas, desperation, Ukrainian army outcry against Zelensky. All fortresses are falling. Ukrainians say, see lists and maps. So here's some key points that I put together. Number one, complete collapse of the Ukrainian defense. The Ukrainian front in Donbas is reported to have collapsed, leading to significant Russian advances. The Ukrainian defense lines have broken down, particularly in the direction of Prokhorovsk, facing Ukrainian troops to retreat. Point number two, Russian advances. The Russian army is advancing at an average speed of 3 kilometers per day, capturing or entering key cities. Right, we'll see some of those in a minute on a map. Russian forces are reportedly approaching the center of Silindovova and the eastern suburbs of Myronograd, indicating rapid territorial gains. Strategic loss for Ukraine. Ukrainian sources are deeply concerned about losing critical Ukrainian cities like Torstik, Chasov, Yar, Pokrovsk, and Volodymyr. The capture of these areas threatens Ukraine's supply lines and its overall strategic position in the Donbas. So the outcry against Zelensky, the rapid collapse of the defenses has sparked criticism against President Zelensky from various quarters, including the military and political analysts. The decision to redeploy troops to the Kursk region operation is blamed for weakening Ukraine's defense in Donbas, leading to the current situation they find themselves in now. So point number four, implications for Ukrainian forces. The loss of critical strategic points like Pokrovsk region and the ongoing Russian advancement pose a significant threat, potentially leading to further losses. Desperation evacuations. There are reports of mass evacuations for strategically essential cities like Pokrovsk, and the situation is described as rapidly deteriorating, with Ukrainian forces retreating under pressure. The situation underscores the challenges faced by Ukraine and maintaining its defense in the face of sustained Russian offenses in the Donbas region, Ukraine. The consequences could be far-reaching both militarily and politically. All that money that's been pumped into Ukraine, think about it, billions of dollars, right? Interesting. So here are some of the key cities, right? I was talking about. Let me zoom in on the names. So there they are, right? On your screen. Here's some few maps. Here we go. Ukrainian authorities announced mandatory evacuation of Pokrovsk via loudspeakers. So let's listen.
Для евакуації необхідно подати заявку до міських рад та військових адміністрацій за номером телефона 0800 500 121. Повторюю, 0800 500 121. Або звернутися до місцевих органів влади, ДСНС, Національної поліції та представників військових адміністрацій. Також наголошуємо щодо зміни комендантської години. Наразі у місті тривають обмеження комендантської години з 15 по 11 годину. У зв'язку з цим заборонено перебувати
going to have to intervene at some point. Right? So here's the video. Shows the advance of the Russians towards those regions that are on your screen. Russian forces have raised their flag in the central part of the settlement. Right there on your screen. Ukrainian forces withdrew. Right? Right, let's move on. Report. All right. So fierce fighting continues, right? So fierce fighting. Report for. Russia announced it captured 2 more settlements in the east. So they're now claiming they've captured 2 more settlements in the east. So Ukrainian army chief Oleksandr Syrsky, reported that fierce battles are taking place. Right here on your screen. Right there. With Russian forces intensifying their attacks to break through Ukrainian defenses. Russian advances. Russian forces have reportedly captured 2 settlements in eastern Ukraine. Right here, they're on your screen. The Russian forces captured 2 villages in eastern Ukraine, the ones right there on your screen. Ukrainian defense efforts. The Ukrainian General Staff confirmed that Ukrainian forces are actively repelling attacks in these areas, indicating ongoing resistance despite the Russian advances. Okay? Urgent call for military aid. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba urged the EU allies to accelerate the delivery of promised military aid, particularly air defense systems, highlighting the urgency of strengthening Ukraine's defense capabilities. The use of unorthodox methods. Syrsky emphasized that Ukraine is employing unconventional tactics to bolster its positions in response to the intense Russian pressure. Interesting. These points underscore the critical situation on the Eastern Front. That's what my report is detailing. With both sides engaged in what heavy combat and Ukraine seeking rapid military support from its allies. As we keep moving on. Russians announced the capture of these cities right here on your screen. 0 hour for Volodymyr. So the Russian Ministry of Defense announced the capture of the city right there in eastern Ukraine. On your city, zoom in. Right? So this is a significant development in the ongoing conflict and a potential setback for Ukrainian forces. These cities, including the one right there on your screen, they are crucial to Ukrainian military regional defense, underscoring the strategic importance of these fortress cities. The Washington-based Institute for the Study of War, IWS, warns that losing, Druzhkovka, right? And that one right there, the city right there, would be significant operational setbacks for Ukraine, potentially challenging to reverse, highlighting the gravity of the situation. So pressure on port force. The capture of these cities is likely to increase pressure on Ukrainian forces. Another critical city under Russian attack. Talking about port force, right? This could lead to the fortified Ukrainian positions of Chasiv Yar. And the second, right here, starts with an A, right? Konstantinovka, potentially altering the dynamics of the conflict. Forced evacuations. In response to the escalating situation, Ukrainian authorities have begun to force evacuations of port force, indicating the severity of Russian offensive. Continued Russian advances. The capture of Konstantinovka follows the recent Russian capture of two other villages, the ones we were talking about. These advances mark a significant progression in the conflict with Russian forces gaining more ground in eastern Ukraine. Fierce fighting and heavy losses. The Ukrainian military is reporting intense fighting in this region, with both sides suffering heavy losses in personnel and also equipment. Ukrainian counter strategy. The recent attack on the Kurks aimed to draw Russian forces away from eastern Ukraine, but the effectiveness of the strategy remains to be determined. However, it has reportedly eased pressure on the northeastern front near Kharkiv. These points highlight the escalating conflict in eastern Ukraine, with significant territorial gains by Russian forces and increasing challenges for Ukrainian defenses. All right, moving on. So, former president of Ukraine, Poroshenko, surprised with what he said about Kurds. Fate is decided, port force. So, Poroshenko's warning on port force. Former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko emphasized the strategic importance of port force, stating that the fate of the current conflict could be decided there, urging Kiev to prioritize strengthening the front line of the Donbas over operations in Kursk. Urgency for reinforcement. Poroshenko highlighted the lack of fortification supplies in the Donbas region, particularly in port force, and stressed the need for urgent action to support Ukraine forces in the region. Poroshenko personally visited, bringing drones to support Ukrainian army units and underscoring his commitment to reinforcing this critical area. Criticism of Kiev strategy. Poroshenko criticized the Ukrainian government's focus on the Kursk operation, arguing that it has diverted attention and resources away from more crucial fronts, such as the Donbas region. Interesting. Russian advancements towards port force. Despite Ukrainian efforts, Russian forces have continued to advance towards port force, with troops already in Silindovoba, approximately 18 kilometers southeast of the city. Strategic importance of port force. Port force, right here, the city we're talking about, zoom in, right, is described as a critical rail and road hub, vital for maintaining Ukraine's presence in Donbas, making it a focal point in the ongoing conflict. My report highlights Poroshenko's concerns about the current Ukrainian military strategy, the critical situation of port force as Russian forces continue their advance. Right. Moving on with the report. So, the BLID bombshell. Ukraine's AGES met with 35 NATO generals in Germany. It was a closed-door meeting that took place in Dresden. Interesting. So let's get into this. So a secret meeting in Germany. Ukraine's ground forces commander Alexander Pavlak reportedly met with ground force commanders from 35 NATO countries, primarily European, in a closed-door meeting in Dresden, Germany. Dates and security. The meeting lasted from August 27th to the 29th. It was held under heightened security. Participants were instructed not to share details on social networks to prevent espionage. Invitation by the German military. The event was organized at the invitation of the Lieutenant General Offens Mayes, the Chief of Staff of the German Army. U.S. representation. The United States was represented by Darrell Williams, Commander of the U.S. Army Europe and Africa. Military equipment display. The meeting featured the latest German military equipment, including 18 million euros, right? Sky Ranger air defense system and 10 million euros, RCH-155 unmanned howitzers. Future deliveries to Ukraine. Ukraine is expected to receive 54 RCH-155 howitzers by 2025. My report highlights the meeting significance in the context of ongoing military cooperation, and the potential strengthening of Ukraine's defense capabilities. Right? I think this meeting was much more than that. Right? I think that it's getting closer to game time. This meeting was more than just arming Ukraine. Right? Listen attentively. Let's get going to the report. So next on the screen, for the first time in decades, the U.S. Navy does not have an aircraft carrier in the Pacific, paving the way for China to attack Taiwan. I've been keeping up with China and Taiwan on Facebook, right? You can follow me on Facebook, right? I'll show the pages here in a minute. Let's get through this report, right? So, no U.S. aircraft carrier in the Pacific. For the first time in decades, the U.S. Navy has no aircraft carrier station in the Indo-Pacific region, a critical area amid raising tensions with China over disputed territories, the South China Sea, and Taiwan Strait. Reassignment to the Middle East. In response to potential conflict with Iran, the USS Abraham Lincoln was ordered to move from the Pacific to the Middle East. Similarly, the USS Theodore Roosevelt, another Pacific-based carrier, was also sent to the Middle East. Both airlines are now in the Gulf of Oman. Absent since 2001. For the first time since 2001, the U.S. has been without an aircraft carrier in the Indo-Pacific. The last similar instance was when the USS Kitty Hawk was redeployed from Japan to the Persian Gulf. Limited Pacific presence. Other carriers typically stationed in the Pacific, such as the USS Ronald Reagan and the USS Carl Vinson, are currently docked on the U.S. West Coast. With the Reagan and Bermston, Washington, with the Reagan and Washington, state of Washington, and the Vinson and San Diego. The USS George Washington's movement. The USS George Washington is en route to Japan, but will not arrive until the following month, leaving a temporary gap in the U.S. carrier's presence. Potential strategic risk. Retired Navy Captain Jim Fennell highlighted the danger of the situation, noting that the absence of the aircraft carrier group in the Pacific has been unprecedented since 2001 and should pose a significant risk, particularly given the current geopolitical tensions in China. These points underscore the strategic implications of the U.S. Navy's current deployment decisions, particularly about the security dynamics in the Indo-Pacific region. All right, so we're done, almost. Last article. Putin is being pressured from everywhere. The NATO cordon is tightening in Kaliningrad and Belarus. What will happen for the first time since World War III? So if you're going to ask me about World War III, listen to my reports. So construction of the military base. Lithuania has started building a military base between Russia's Kaliningrad region and Belarus, signaling a strategic move by NATO. NATO expansion. Listen, this is why Russia invaded Ukraine. NATO expansion. German troop deployment. The base will host German troops, marking the first permanent deployment of German forces on foreign soil since the end of World War II. The deployment was agreed upon in December of 2023 between the German and Lithuanian defense ministers. Proximity to Belarus. The base will be approximately 20 kilometers, 12 miles from the Belarusian border, a significant position given the ongoing tensions between NATO and Russia. So NATO expansion, right? Troop strength and composition. By 2027, the facility will house 4,800 combat-ready troops, including heavy weaponry and support infrastructure. The 42nd Armored Brigade will include two German-only combat battalions, an armored and heavy infantry battalion, and one multinational battalion. Strategic leadership in NATO. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius described this development as an opportunity for Germany to take leadership within NATO, reinforcing the alliance presence in Eastern Europe, deterrent against Russia. Lithuanian defense minister stated that the presence of the German brigade would reassure the Lithuanian population and serve as a deterrent to Russian aggression. My report highlights the increasing NATO presence and pressure on Russia, particularly in the strategic sensitive areas of Kaliningrad and Belarus, with significant historical implications for European military deployments. And that is the report. All right, before we close out, we can follow on Facebook. So let's pull it up real quick, if I can. So I started a group, right, here in Facebook. It's called Watchdog, Ukraine, Russia War, NATO, EU updates. So it's a little bit of everything in here, okay? You can follow me there at that group. I also started a page. So I'm going to show everybody this. And this one is called JPCE Spiritual Talk and Watchdog News. So the other day I posted in here, and we're going to listen to this really quick video, and then we're going to close out because it has to do with what we're talking about. So right here, there was a tense exchange between Jennifer Griffin, Grill's Pentagon press secretary on aircraft carrier absence and the Indo-Pacific. Let's watch this and get out for this evening.
In our priority theater, which is the Indo-Pacific region. And so we have a significant amount of capability there to include a large naval presence. And so in the case of the Middle East, as I highlighted, the Secretary wanted those two carrier strike groups to remain in the region for now, to be able to provide us with additional capability and capacity to protect our forces, support the defense of Israel, and also be ready for a variety of contingencies.
But how long do you expect to have this carrier gap?
Look, I'm not going to get into deployment timelines for operation security reasons, but the bottom line is we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
All right. So, look at the time. All right, good. Hope you all enjoyed the report. I'm going to stop the share. All right, so we're going to get out of here. So that's the report, right? Why are we continuing to talk about the Kursk region and what's going on in Ukraine? Because that could lead us to World War III. Well, look at China too. China does something to Taiwan, it draws us in, right? Things get out of control in Israel, it can draw us in. There's so many things going on right now that can lead us to World War III. Everything's important. So thank you all again for following. It's JPCE Watchdog News. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you, be merciful to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, now and forever. Amen. We depart peace. All right, in the name of the Lord. Love you all so much. Have a blessed evening. Hope you enjoyed this report. Be prepared. Get ready. I love you all so much. I'm out.